Amar, inshallah ta'ala, and your question, inshallah, will be answered through those two ways. Bismillah. Well, it's not different, mashallah. I can hear myself. Alhamdulillah. You know what? Subhanallah, I've been visiting a few of the masajid around in the city, and I kept telling Brother Aman, Brother Nasser, that this masjid right here really makes me feel at home. Meaning, this masjid right here, youth, you look at the diversity, subhanAllah, I cannot help but compare it to my masjid in Calgary as well. So it's an absolute pleasure for me to be here with you all this evening. And inshallah ta'ala, I to talk about a very important a topic that really does concern every single one of us today, and if not today, then in the future. You know, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he made a prophecy over 1400 years ago. And I truly believe that that prophecy has manifested today. We are part of that prophecy. Where he says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, يأتي على الناس زمان القابض على دينه كالقابض على الجمر. That there is going to come a time where a young man, a young woman, a father, a mother, a family, there will come a time where these individuals are trying their best to hold on to their deen, but they're having difficulty. And that difficulty is as difficult as holding a burning coal. Now, holding a burning coal is not an easy thing. It's something that's usually juggled. It might fall, but you pick it up. You struggle with it. Sometimes it even hurts. This is a lot of the description that we get from a lot of our youth today. I can't hang on to my deen. My deen's just too difficult. I fell off, as they say. I dropped it. But the Prophet ﷺ, he knew we would be living in times that would be difficult. So in understanding this hadith, it then becomes important for us as Muslims, as young men, as young women, as mothers and fathers. How can we ensure children, the ones we gave birth to, the ones we suckled, the ones we took care of and sacrificed our whole lives for, how can we ensure that this investment that I have made in this dunya is going to be paid back in full in my akhirah? That not only myself, but my children and my family will be together in Jannah. Our success today is our success tomorrow. And I hate this statement that the youth are our future. This is such a wrong statement. The youth are not our future. The youth are our present. And in understanding that the youth and our children are our present, we have to give them the attention they need today in order to be successful tomorrow. Therefore, in today's halaqah, or in tonight's halaqah, I wish to give 3 sincere pieces of advice to the youth, followed by 3 sincere pieces of advice to the parents, to the imams, to the community leaders, to the mentors of this beautiful community. And I don't remind anybody first except for myself. I don't give you this advice except that I look at myself in the mirror and I give myself this advice first. It's for the youth. You're living in very trying times. It's not easy. And I will certainly say with confidence and conviction that throughout history, from the beginning of time, from Adam alayhi salam to this very moment, I truly believe that this is the most difficult time to be growing up as a youth. with everything that is surrounding you, with everything that is luring you in, with everything that is influencing you, whether it's in real life or even online. This is one of the most difficult times for a young man, for a young woman to grow, to flourish, to develop, and I heard that. The first step is an education. And I don't mean going to UBC or I believe it's Simon Fraser University, if I'm not mistaken. That is a great education. That is an important education. That is an education that you should strive for, but there's a prerequisite towards that education. And that is the education that you are receiving here in this institute, in this masjid, from this community. Ignorance is a disease. And if we are ignorant, we are sick. And its only cure is knowledge. Our Islamic tradition began on the statement of seeking knowledge. The Prophet ﷺ was dealing with a community that he felt he needed to separate himself from. A community that had a negative impact on his worldview, on his beliefs, on his values. So what did he do? Did he stay in that community? No. He left and he made his way out of the city horizontally, and then he needed to take it a step further and move out vertically. And he went to Ghar al-Hira, and he was seeking something. He was seeking some type of inspiration, some type of guidance. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew that he was prepared. And the first word to be revealed from the Quran was a statement to seek an education, to seek knowledge. And that is the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Iqra. Read. Read. هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كانوا من قبل لفي ضلال مبين. This was the responsibility of the Prophet ﷺ. He was dealing with individuals who were so far gone, individuals who were worshiping idols, individuals who would be blessed with children, with daughters. I have two daughters, the greatest blessings in my life. And when they were blessed with these daughters, they would take them, they would dig a hole, and they would bury that child alive to the point where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He asks the question in the Quran, وَإِذَا الْمَوْءُودَةُ سُئِلَتْ بِأَيِّ ذَنبٍ قُتِلَتْ. This is the group, this is the society. These are the individuals that the Prophet ﷺ was dealing with. So he sent Muhammad ﷺ from amongst them. منهم. And what was his responsibility? يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ. To recite unto them the wahi of Allah. وَيُعَلِّمُهُمْ. This is the key word. وَيُعَلِّمُهُمْ what? الكتاب والحكمة. أي القرآن والسنة. Why? وإن كانوا من قبل لفي ضلال مبين. Because prior to this guidance of Allah Azza wa Jal, these individuals were in great deviance. And similarly, if we don't adopt the Quran and adopt the Sunnah and learn them and implement them in our lives as young men and young women, we will be from amongst those people وَإِن كَانُوا مِن قَبْلُ لَفِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ. When you learn about your faith, you raise yourself in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. يَرْفَعِ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنكُمْ وَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ دَرَجَاتٍ. Allah raises you and He honors you. You know what breaks my heart? Is when we have a janazah and a young man's mother or father has passed away. May Allah preserve and protect your mothers and fathers. And that kid comes in to the masjid. He doesn't have wudu. He doesn't have wudu. Why? Because he doesn't know how to make wudu. And then they pray usually Dhuhr prayer. He doesn't know how to pray Dhuhr prayer. He's just following everybody. And then the Imam says, who from the family will pray? Think about this as a young man. Who from the family will pray? And this young man, he lost his mother, he lost his father. But he doesn't know how to pray Salatul Janazah. So not only is he robbed of the privilege of leading the janazah for his mother and father, he's standing in the back row, not even knowing what he's doing. This is a child, a young man who's been robbed of purpose, of guidance, of success, because he failed to acquire that knowledge he needed to. And when it comes to knowledge, my dear brothers and sisters, it's not about you being a scholar. It's not about you going out and becoming Shaykh, Shuyukh, or the Mufti, or the Maulana. It's not about that. It's about you learning the basic things you need in order to operate accordingly. When it comes to knowledge, there are two types of knowledge. Fard Ain and Fard Kifaya. You as a young man, your job is to learn Fard Ain. How do I purify myself? There are some people who come to Jum'ah, they don't even know how to make ghusl. They don't know. And they come and they pray. Little do they know they're in a state of janabah. They were never taught. They were wrong. And they have young children. And if they don't know, what are the chances of their young children knowing? As parents, what we want most for our children is the best. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us what is best. If Allah wants good for our children, He is not going to give them a new pair of Jordans. He's not going to give them a nice car. He's not going to get them into the best university. He's not going to find him or her the most perfect spouse. If Allah wants good for you, and I want you young, especially the young ones, to really understand the statement of the Prophet ﷺ. If Allah wants good for you, the Prophet ﷺ tells us, مَنْ يُرِيدِ اللَّهُ بِهِ خَيْرًا يُفَقِّهُ فِي الدِّينِ. If Allah wants something good for you, He gives you an understanding of your religion, meaning an understanding of your purpose, meaning an understanding of your life. How many young kids wake up this break? They're going to wake up and they're going to have no direction, no purpose, no reason, because school is over. And that's all they do. They wake up, they go to school, they come home, they eat, they watch TV, they game a little, and they go back to sleep. And that's on repeat every single day. What a sad way to live. As a parent, what I want most for my child is what? If I ask you as a parent, if there was one thing that Allah could give your child, what would it be? There should be nothing in this dunya. But as a parent, you would say, I want Jannah for my child. Because you might say, I want my child to be a hafiz. I want my child to be an imam. I want my child to be religious. I want my child to be close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those are means to an end. But as a parent, what you would want for your child is not the means. You would just skip the means and go straight to the ends. I want my child to enter into Jannah without any accountability. بغير حساب. That's what I would want. I get straight to it. من سلك طريقا يلتمس فيه علما سهل الله له طريقا إلى الجنة. If a person leaves and takes a path of knowledge, then Allah will facilitate Jannah for that person. Whoever's online, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I don't see you, but you are on a path of knowledge. Sisters up there in the top, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I don't see you, but you're on a path of knowledge. To my brothers here, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hani'an lakum. I said it in my khutbah on Friday. Y'all are getting Jannah. I'll say it again because you are on a path of knowledge, and Allah will facilitate that path for you and your family, inshallah ta'ala. The birds that fly high in the sky to the fish that are swimming in the deepest depths of the Pacific Ocean. They're making dua for every single one of you here today. When Brother Omar had to stand up and he's saying, yo, why are you leaving? It wasn't so Brother Omar could go around with a group. MashaAllah, we had a packed full house today, MashaAllah. By the way, congrats, this is a packed house. But he's calling the people in because he's saying, Jannah is here. Don't leave. This is your tariq ila al-Jannah. سهل الله له طريقا إلى الجنة. Don't leave. It's only an hour. Wallahi, Yawm al-Qiyamah, you will look back at this day, you will say, Alhamdulillah, I didn't leave. I stayed. You are earning the inheritance of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sometimes when parents, they work so hard because they want to make sure they leave something behind for their kids. But I'm going to tell you something right now. The money that you make, the land that you have, the house that you own is nothing in comparative value when it comes to the sunnah and the way of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So let's let the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam distribute his inheritance to our children. My dear brothers and sisters, when it comes to the first step that we need to take in order to preserve our faith, our Islamic identity, our pride and honor in being Muslims, is that we learn. Is that we learn about our faith. Alhamdulillah, you have a hub. You have your halaqat in the masjid. You have your khutbahs. You have your classes. I was here on Thursday, and you have Abu Hurairah Quran Academy. And then I went to the back, and mashallah, I saw an Islamic school. There's no excuse anymore. When I was younger, we didn't even have YouTube. I didn't even have YouTube to watch a lecture. And the halaqat in the masjid were not, really that appealing. So the young brothers and sisters here, this masjid, those classes, that school, that is an evidence for you or an evidence against you. You choose. It has been facilitated. Number two, and I really want the youth to listen to me on this one, your entourage. The people you hang out with. Tell me who your friends are. I will tell you who you are. The people you surround yourself with will have such an impact on your life that 10, 15, 20 years down the line, you will look back and either thank Allah or make istighfar. One of the two. And when it comes to friendship, it is important that we understand something. The concept of quality over quantity. The concept of quality over quantity. What does that mean? You know what I always say? I say, I take a loonie over 10 dimes any day in the week. I take a loonie over 10 dimes any day in the week. What does that mean? And he said, I would take one friend. I would take one friend, and he has total and complete value, mashallah. Over 10 friends who are only a fraction of that man. The Prophet ﷺ, he tells us that a friend is someone not only who will help you in this life, but bring you success in your next. You know the Prophet ﷺ, when he made hijrah, Prophet ﷺ made hijrah. Did he call up? He had companions, right? He had his companions everywhere. Did he say, I need you, and I need you, and I need you, and I need to create a gang around me that if Quraysh catches us, we can take care of them? No. He said, where's my best friend? Where's that individual that I need who's always been there for me? I need one man to do one of the most difficult things that I will ever have to do in my life. You, as a young man, you need to understand something. It's not about being popular. It's not about having all the friends in the world. It's about finding someone who can benefit you in this life and in the next. What youth often try to do is they begin to compromise their beliefs and their values to seek satisfaction or friendship from people who in reality don't even really care about them. And I'm going to tell you something. As a young man, and I wish somebody told me this as a young man, you will never gain the satisfaction and the acceptance of the masses. Never. As a young man, I want you to really look at me and understand this. You will never be able to please everyone. Ever. If 100% of the people love you, that is a horrible thing. Because it means that you have compromised something of your beliefs and values in order for them to accept you. And if 100% of the people hate you, then you got a problem there too. You got to check. One thing that young men and young women need to understand is they need to stop seeking the acceptance of the people. There's a beautiful story that keeps people sincere, and I want to share it with you today. It's a story of a young boy and his father. A story of a young boy and his father. One day, the father says to the boy, come on, son, let's go buy the donkey for the farm. So I said, okay, Dad, let's go. So they make their way and they find the exact donkey they were looking for. So the son says, that's the one, Dad. The son says, good job, son. Let's take it. Let's go. Let's pay for it in full and let's head back home. So the father says to the son, son, hop on. So now the son, he's riding the donkey And the father is walking by, and they're smiling, they're happy. They come across a group of people, and the father hears them talking. What are they saying? Oh my God, look at this young man making his elderly father walk. So the father, he hears this, and he says, son, get down. And the father gets on the donkey, and he starts riding the donkey. And they continue on their journey. And as they're on their journey, they come across another group of people. What are they saying? The father, he hears. He says, oh my gosh, look at this man, this strong man making his little kid walk alongside. So the father, he gets off, and now they're both walking alongside the donkey. They come across another group of people. Oh my gosh, look at these people. They buy a donkey and they don't even ride it. The father, he hears this, so he says, son, get on, I'm going to get on. So now they're both riding the donkey. They continue on their way. They come across another group of people. Oh my God, two people on one donkey? That is one. So the father, he hears this. He says, son, get the front, I'm going to get the back. Now they start carrying the donkey. They come across another group of people. Oh my God, they buy a donkey to ride. The donkey is riding them. The point here is, my brothers and sisters, no matter what you do in your life, whether it's the way you dress, whether it's the people you hang out with, whether it's the places you go, you will never please the people. You as a young man and you as a young woman, you need to first find the pleasure of Allah. And when Allah loves you, He calls out to Jibreel, I love Fulan, so love him. And when Jibreel hears that, he begins to love you. And then Jibreel calls out to the inhabitants of Jannah, Ya Ahl al-Jannah, Allah loves Fulan, so love them. Now Allah loves you. Jibreel loves you. The people of Jannah love you. What happens? Then the love and the acceptance of Jannah comes down, and it befalls the people here in dunya, and the people who deserve to love you will love you, because not everyone will always love you. For if there was a man who was to be loved by the masses, it would have been Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Who are you? Who am I? I'm going to finish today's halaqah today, and somebody's going to go home and say, well, what was the Shaykh talking about? I don't know. He was talking about some story about a donkey. I didn't even understand. Please, everybody. But as a young man, as a young woman, if your target is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then those who deserve to love you will love you. And those are your friends. So we have the first two E's. Does anybody remember what the first E was? Go ahead. Education. Oh, this guy. Come on, brother. You can step up. This kid was quick. What's the second E? Go. Entourage. Exactly. Let's move on to the third E. Is that good? E. The third E. Environment. You are a product of your environment. You are a product of your environment. No matter where you go, you will be affected by the environment you put yourself in. If you come here today, you don't even want to be here. Just by being here, you're going to receive a benefit. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, the sit-in with the righteous, like this sit-in right here, you will all righteous men, inshallah, all righteous women. But the sit-in with the righteous is like the sit-in with the man who sells the what? The misk. Or the cologne, you know, the Gucci and the Versace and the nice stuff, the Da Vinci. He's either going to give you some, or at least if he doesn't give you some, you're going to leave his presence smelling what? Good. Either you take what I give you today, or just by being here, leaving and forgetting everything, you're still left in a better state than when you came. Whereas the sit-in with the unrighteous person is like the sit-in with the blacksmith. He's either going to burn your clothes or you're going to end up smelling like smoke. I'll give you an example. Kids at school, it always happens. I always hear it. Kids after school in high school, they're going out, they're vaping, they're smoking cigarettes, or maybe even they're smoking marijuana. And the group of friends says to the guy, Muhammad, let's go and smoke. Ahmed's like, no, no, no. Ahmed's still Muslim. Ahmed still fears Allah. He says, no, 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 but I'll come with you guys. I'll come with you guys. So Ahmed, he goes, they go around the school, they go around the block, they go around the corner store, and they smoke the cigarette, and they, okay, oh, it's over. Assalamu alaikum. They go. Ahmed, Muhammad, they open the door, they come home. Mom is waiting there. Hey, kids, how was... What? Ahmed, what is that? Are you smoking? Wallahi, Mom, I didn't smoke. Ahmed, you're smoking. What? Is his mother going to believe him? Is his mother going to believe him? Absolutely not. He didn't smoke. He didn't do the sin. But by being around the sin in that environment, it negatively affected him. So the environment that we put ourselves in is going to have a direct connection with regards to our growth. I was blessed enough in my community to be a part of establishing an amazing youth center that I hold near and dear to my heart. And we put a lot of money, a lot of resources, a lot of effort in establishing this youth center where people and young men and young women can come in as they are. I've had young men, I'll be frank with you, I've had young men come into some of our halaqat just stoned out of their minds. But am I going to stand at the door and say, ouch? I would never do that. I would never do that. Because it may be that environment, that moment where something being said is going to have an impact on him that will prevent him from doing that again. But when we finished establishing this youth center, we were left with a question. What do we want to name it? What are we going to name it? Calgary Youth Center? Yeah. That's not, we're going to name it. I was doing the tafsir of Surah Al-Kahf, and I came across the verse, وَإِذَا اعْتَزَلْتُمُوهُمْ وَمَا يَعْبُدُونَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ فَأْوُوا إِلَى الْكَهْفِ يَنشُرْ لَكُمْ رَبُّكُمْ مِنْ رَحْمَتِهِ وَيُهَيِّئْ لَكُمْ مِنْ أَمْرِكُمْ مِرْفَقًا. The story is these young youth who are growing up in a society that is similar to our society today. A society of oppression, a society of vices, a society of desires and whims and temptation. And these young men, shabab, like you, their fitrah, it kicked in. And they disassociated themselves with that community. But they had nowhere to go. And they found one another. And they explained to one another, this is how I feel. I feel as if I cannot be here anymore. It is stunting my growth spiritually, religiously, emotionally, even physically. So they're inspired by Allah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us exactly where they went. To the cave. Why? It is there where they will find an effective environment that is suitable for their fitrah and to maintain and retain the goodness within them. And not only that, Allah will send down His mercy upon them and be the best disposer of their affairs. As young men and as young women, you need to have a place where you can go and feel welcome. I felt when I walked into this masjid that the youth here feel welcomed. I feel it. I was at a few other masajid here in the city. Certainly it wasn't like this. Whatever it is that you guys are doing here, you need to continue to do it and you need to put it in high drive because it's working. It's working. Whatever's happening here in this masjid, I'm telling you now, it's working. That's enough for the kids. Let's move on to the parents now. Just as we shared 3 responsibilities with the youth, who can remind me what the 3 were, please? All 3 of them at once. Young man, go ahead. Education, environment, entourage. Very good. Entourage. Y'all can be part of my entourage, inshallah. I roll with you guys, inshallah. Now, slash what? With entourage. Well, we can with an E. Entourage. Is entourage with an O? Is it? You ain't messing me up, bro. I'm like, yo, I messed this thing up. It was about E, and this comes something with an O. Yeah, wow. So you can never trust these young ones. MashaAllah. Alhamdulillah. It's for the parents. You know what they say? And this is so true because I see it in my own life with my father. May Allah bless him and preserve him. Says, there's no man in this world who would ever want to see you surpass them or exceed them in anything good more than your own father. Everybody else is like, you can be where I'm at, but as long as I'm just a step ahead of you, I'm good. As for your father, he wants to see you better than he ever was. But in order for our children to be better than we are, we need to lead by what? Example. What does example start with? E. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لم تقولون ما لا تفعلون. Oh, you who believe, why do you say that which you do not do? Muhammad, get up and pray. Fatima, get up and pray. But you don't pray. Our youth, they learn by example. The Prophet ﷺ was the greatest of examples. If the Prophet ﷺ said, stand up and pray, he would not only stand up and pray during the day, but he would stand up and pray during the night when everybody else is sleeping and his feet are swollen and he's crying, not because he needs anything, but because he says to his wife, radiallahu anha, أَفَلَا عَبْدًا شَكُورًا. We have to be the example because talk is cheap and actions speak louder than words. Muhammad, stop swearing at your sister. Muhammad, stop lying. Stop raising your voice. And then the kid sees his mom on the phone lying. Sees his father on the phone cursing, raising his voice, yelling and swearing. And now the kid's confused. Now the kid's confused. You're telling me one thing, but you're doing another. As parents, we need to understand that if we truly want to impact our children and influence them in a way that is positive, we need to lead by example. We need to. Number 2, engagement. I walked into this masjid on Thursday night between Maghrib and Isha. This was the first interaction with this masjid. We came in, right? I was on the highway to heaven. MashaAllah. See, I know. And then we entered in, and I walked in through the door. And I saw 2 young men. I don't know if they're here today. I don't know if they're here today. Maybe they're here today. But there were 2 young men. And they were holding 2 mops. They were mopping the floor of the masjid. And then they were mopping the wudu area. You know, is that him right there? Is it you? Just say yes. See, I told you. Everyone's looking. See, look. Do you see how the kids, I want to know who is it? It's mopping the floor. You can't even do that now. He's mopping the masjid floor. Why? Because the masjid has engaged the youth. What does engagement stand for? What's the letter engagement? E? Are you sure? Okay, good. Engagement. If you want your youth, your children to grow and to flourish, engage them in your community. You don't need to do the heavy lifting anymore, my brothers and sisters. Alhamdulillah. You got these young bloods here. They got energy. They got power. They got passion. Use them. I just had a young man drive me, pick me up, take me all the way to Burnaby, bring me back. There's a young man. He's engaged. He gets the ajr for all of this. This whole conference, if I'm not mistaken, is being facilitated by who? The elders of the community? Is it? The founders of the community? Is it? Is it the founders that did it? Or was it that young kid who even barely gets a salam when he walks into the masjid sometimes? Yeah, it was him. It was him. But he doesn't do it for anyone. He does it for Allah Azza wa Jal. And these are going to be your future leaders. That brother who's mopping the floor is going to be the one standing on the minbar. Because Allah Azza wa Jal is going to honor him. And finally, my dear brothers, and this is one of the most important things as a parent to take into consideration. Empathy. If you do not have empathy towards your child and what they are going through or what they will go through, you're going to lose them. And the Prophet ﷺ demonstrated empathy in its most perfect way on various occasions, on many occasions in his life, especially towards the youth. I want you guys to just picture this. Prophet ﷺ, he finishes salah. He finishes salah. And then he's sitting down. And a young man, just like you, he comes up to the Prophet ﷺ. And he's struggling. And the Prophet ﷺ looks at him in his eye and he knows that he's struggling. Something is wrong with this kid. And the young man, he sits down. And he says, Ya Rasulullah, please give me permission to commit zina. I'm struggling. When we hear this hadith, many people, the first thing they'll think, Astaghfirullah, this must have been one of the worst kids in the city. Coming to the Prophet, asking him to commit zina. When I read this hadith, I did not say Astaghfirullah, but I said, MashaAllah, what a kid. To be so brave enough and sincere with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he's in the masjid praying, probably making dua, asking Allah for help, asking Allah for relief, asking Allah for guidance. And he's in the masjid. And then when everybody's gone because he doesn't want to be embarrassed or looked down upon, he comes to the Prophet ﷺ and he asks the Prophet ﷺ, let me commit zina, ya Rasulullah. I know Allah said it was haram, but if you can give me the green light, I will do it. But if you give me the red light, I will stop. Why do we say stop? Oh, this is a man. This is a man. And the Prophet ﷺ, what did he say? Astaghfirullah, what kind of man are you? The Prophet ﷺ did not make him feel bad. The Prophet ﷺ recognized his struggle. But he needs to reason with the young man. So he just doesn't say no. Go fast on Monday and Thursday. And inshallah, everything will be okay. He says, do you have a mother? He says, yes, Ya Rasulullah, I have a mother. He says, do you have a sister maybe too? He says, yeah, Rasulullah, I have a sister. Yeah, I got. He says, do you have an aunt? He says, yeah, Rasulullah, I have an aunt. He says, would you like somebody to do that to them? He says, never, Ya Rasul. Forget it. And then what does the Prophet ﷺ do? He doesn't say, be on your way. But the Prophet ﷺ makes dua for him. And he asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, oh Allah, forgive him. He makes three dua for this young man. He didn't say, Allah yahdik. He says three dua. May Allah forgive you. Allahumma aghfir dhanba. May Allah forgive him for his sins. وَطَهْرَ قَلْبَهُ. And purify his heart. وَحَصِّنْ فَرْجَهُ. And preserve his chastity. The hadith goes on to say, after the dua of the Prophet ﷺ, this man's heart never was inclined towards that which was haram again. I want you to put yourself in this situation. Imagine your son came to you and said, or your daughter came to you and said, Mom, Dad, I have a girlfriend. And right? Well, imagine that. What would your first reaction be? Oh, girlfriend? Safarajika girlfriend. I'll show you, girlfriend. I'll show you. After I'm done with you, you're going to have no friends. Not boy, not girl, nobody. Instead of saying, I knew this day was going to come. Let me talk to you. Let's go out for dinner. Me and you. Just me and you. Really? Yeah, let's go. Let's talk. You sit with them, you talk with them. I understand why your heart desires it. I understand why kids want to smoke marijuana. I understand why kids want to vape. I understand why kids want to smoke cigarettes. I understand why kids want to have girlfriends and boyfriends, but I can't agree with it. But I understand. I validate their feelings. I hear you. I understand. But I need to teach you. I need to advise you. Ali radiallahu anhu, what did he say? He said, when it comes to your children, 777. 777. At 7, play with them. From 0 to 7, play with them. Don't worry about anything else. Your number one concern as a parent is to make sure that your kid's heart is attached to you. That when they look at you, they look at you as a role model, as someone they love, they trust, they honor, and respect. The next 7, teach them. Teach them how to pray. Teach them how to fast. Teach them. Your only job is to impart. And then the next 7, 14 to 21, advise them. وذكر فإن ذكرى تنفع. This is the ingredients or the steps of success when it comes to how we deal with our kids and their guidance. We love them, we teach them, and we advise them. So there are 6 E's that we discussed this evening. Whoever gives me all 6 of them, Brother Omar has something special for them, inshallah ta'ala. Whoever can give me all 6. I want to leave here at least knowing I was able to impart something to you all. Give me all 6. Now I'm making you think. Come on, ya shabab. Hmm. Hmm. Wait, was it not clear enough? Maybe. Uh, let me try. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Empathy, environment, entourage, engagement. Exactly. Education. MashaAllah. Takbir! It's always the young guys coming in stuff like that. You know, that's why they say the they have a fadl. Not only in salah, but in halaqat. MashaAllah. ذلك فضل الله يؤتيه من يشاء. It's my absolute pleasure to be with you guys this evening. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses this community, blesses this masjid, blesses those who have been entrusted with the service and the responsibility of taking care not only of this facility, but more importantly, the hearts of those who walk in through those doors. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless your community. And I pray that just as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has gathered us here this evening, that He gathers us in the highest levels of Jannat al-Firdaus. Jazakum Allahu khairan. Subhanak Allahum bihamdika. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. I think we're good, inshallah. Do we have any questions, or are there any questions? We can take maybe 5 minutes of questions if there are any questions. There are questions? Why don't you share them with me, inshallah? Go ahead, young man. You're going to ask your dad that question. That's the you're going to ask your dad that question. If he doesn't give you the answer, you come back and see me tomorrow. I'll be here at this time.
So, question.
Birds and the bees, yeah. Go ahead, young man.
How must one fight feelings of being impressed with oneself, like when being praised?
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
How must one fight feelings of being impressed with oneself, like when being praised?
Ah, that's a beautiful question. There's a beautiful dua, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, the Athar of Abu Bakr. So the question is, how does one refrain from being impressed with themselves, self-admiration, when it comes to the good things that they do? The first thing you need to understand, my dear brothers and sisters, وَمَا تَوْفِيقِي إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. You did what you were able to do only because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala facilitated it for you. It is not from your whims, it is not from your might or your power, but rather it is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's blessing upon you. That is the first thing. When Prophet ﷺ made Fath Makkah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said, إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ, not Nasr Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا. This is what you do. فسبح بحمد ربك. Don't praise yourself, but praise Allah. واستغفر, and make istighfar. So the first thing you want to do is, number one, recognize that it is not from you, but it is from Allah. Number two, make istighfar, because certainly there is deficiency in it. And number three, make a beautiful dua, especially when people, they praise you. This is a beautiful dua that we should all memorize. Allahumma la tu'akhidni bima yaqulun waghfir li ma la ya'lamun waj'alni khayran mimma yadhunnun. Oh Allah, do not take me to account for what they say, whether it's good or it's bad. And forgive me for what they know not. They see me here with a nice blue table and all these cameras in front of me, They don't know what I am when I'm by myself, when the door is closed. They don't know my shortcomings. You do not smell the stench of my sins. That is Allah that has protected me. وَاغْفِرْ لِمَا لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. But then make another dua. وَاجْعَلْنِي خَيْرًا مِمَّا يَظُنُّونَ. But make me better than what they say. They say I'm good, Allah make me great. They say I'm great, Allah make me amazing. So those are some ways, inshallah ta'ala, that we can overcome this feeling of self-admiration. I think we're good, inshallah. You have a question, please, تفضل.
Alhamdulillah. He was saying that you can't pray janazah for a person who never prayed or fasted, I think. And I have an uncle, he never prayed, but we still pray janazah for him and everything. I'm just wondering, I never heard of that. Is this true? And you can't bury them beside the Muslim as well if they didn't
Okay.
pray.
Sure. So first and foremost, may Allah grant you the strength and the patience to deal with the passing of your loved one. The second thing is, the Prophet ﷺ, he told us something. العهد الذي بيننا وبينهم الصلاة فمن تركها فقد كفر. However, we need to understand this hadith. You know, the abandonment of prayer is at different levels. We need to understand this. And the scholars, they differentiate between these levels as well. An abandonment of prayer, for example, if someone will say, I'm a Muslim, I believe in Allah, and I believe in Muhammad ﷺ, but I don't need to pray this way. Allah knows what is in my heart. I don't need to come on Jum'ah and leave work and come and sit down to the Imam and have to go back to work. God doesn't need that from me. I don't need to pray 5 times a day. It's good enough that I pray in my heart. That type of mentality is a mentality that takes you out of the fold of Islam. There's no difference of opinion. Okay? So it's complete denial of the prayer in of itself. And in that situation, it may be regarded that that person is outside of the fold of Islam. And then they wouldn't have the rights of the Muslim after their passing. However, there are other types of people, brother, as well, who struggle with their prayer. There's a difference between a person who doesn't pray at all, never in their life, someone who struggles with their prayer, or maybe who prays Jum'ah, or maybe prays every now and then, or maybe comes for Salatul Eid. The scholars have said that these types of different people are regarded as fusaq, but yet they are not necessarily outside of the fold of al-Islam. And they need to turn back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because they are on the verge of kufr. So you would need to better understand, my dear brother, what the individual state was. Was it a state of complete denial, or was it a state of struggle? If it was a state of complete denial, then yes, it may be that he is outside of the fold of Islam. And as our Shaykh said, Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah, that he would not acquire the rights of the Muslim after their passing. But if it is a brother who was struggling with his iman and he prayed every now and then yes, that is a kabira from the kaba'ir, and that is a major sin. And that is the first thing that Allah is going to ask them about on the Day of Judgment. أَوَّلُ مَا يُحَاسِبُ بِهِ الْعَبْدُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ مِنْ عَمَلِهِ صَلَاتُهُ. So it's the first thing he will be asked of. So he will reap what he has sown. He will be held accountable for what he has missed. But it doesn't necessarily imply that he has exited the fold of Al-Islam. I hope that is able to clarify, inshallah, for you, my dear brother.
Last question.
Yes.
Kevin's question. Yeah, question.
So the final question here for tonight is, how can I make my kids listen to my advice when they think they know better or I'm over, and when they tell us you know nothing? So number one, it's not always about what you say. And this goes back to one of the examples, or one of the E's that we spoke about, which was example. Telling your kid to pray is one thing. Praying in front of your kid is just as loud as saying, go and pray. Isn't it right? Isn't it right? Praying in front of your child is just as effective in reminding them and telling them and teaching them that prayer is what? Important. And your children, when you pass away, they're not going to remember what you told them, they're going to remember what you did. My father used to pray all night. My mother used to fast every Monday and Thursday. It's that example that you set for them, my dear sister, that will allow them, that once they become more mature, because if a child is looking at their mother or their father and saying, you know nothing, or I know more than you, that is a statement of ignorance and immaturity. But you have to be patient with them. You have to be patient with them. So my advice to you, my dear sister, is to lead by example. Everything you want your children to be, you need to be today. And when they see you and they look at you and they observe you, it will have a greater impact on any order or command that you give them. Jazakumullahu khairan, my dear brothers and sisters. Tomorrow night, I do have my final lecture here with you. And I would highly recommend that the parents bring their children, because the topic of tomorrow evening's lecture will be the two doors of Jannah. The rights of the parents over their children and the responsibility of the children towards their parents, inshallah ta'ala. جزاكم الله خيرا. Again, سبحانك اللهم بحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Have an amazing evening, and we will see you all tomorrow بإذن الله تعالى. Thank حبيبي. الله يحفظك. الله.
There are a lot more questions. They're coming from the sisters. Rest assured, we will get to them. The Shaykh will be back here tomorrow, and we'll try to get all of those questions answered by the Shaykh tomorrow. The reason we had to cut this off, the Shaykh has to be at Masjid al-Salam in Burnaby, and we have to leave now. So we have to stop the lecture, inshallah. So, like I said, tomorrow we have several programs. We have Ajr for Fajr in the morning, so Salatul Fajr, and then we'll have a potluck breakfast right after that. So please attend that. 6 p.m. we have Sheikh Yusuf Susi, who will be back here again for his last and final lecture. It's called Muslims, Non-Muslims, and the Two Extremes. And then the final talk tomorrow will be our Sheikh Ali Nasser, who will be here at 8:30 after Isha, talking about the two doors of paradise. So rest assured, we haven't neglected your questions. We'll get to them tomorrow. And the youth who are here for the sleepover, our Imam, Sheikh Yahya, please see him, remain seated, and he will direct you in terms of what's going to happen next. Jazakumullahu khairan, and we'll see everybody, inshallah, tomorrow.
Stop.